we pulled up to the place, it was real late at night, and we were the first one at the lock gate. Well, when we woke up, it was coming daylight, and there was already 500 cars behind us trying to get in this place, and it just blew our mind. We didn't know what to think. We didn't know what the hell was going on.
Was that on the coast, or was it inland?
It was right up by the Russian River on the ocean side, and it was a famous landing. It started with an L. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. The guy pulls up in this bus at the airport, literally, and I bought this bus, and that's how this went down. And he's like, "See you, sucker."
Wow, sounds like quite the adventure.
Oh, it was. Then we ran out of dope and all this other crap. I got caught. The only time I ever got caught shoplifting, I got caught shoplifting for matches in California because I was going to blow matches. I was going to blow some off, and and the lady was like, back then you swiped it, so I swiped one deal of matches, but I had like 20, and she caught me, and I didn't get in trouble, but that was the omen. It was crazy.
Did you say matches? Like matches?
Yeah, we take, that's how you make catalyst, not off the matches, but the actual match strip.
Right. That's what you got caught stealing.
Well, yeah, I got reprimanded, better yet. I wasn't going to sit around and talk about it. I was going to haul ass. But she's like, did you pay for it? And I said, no, apparently I didn't. So I went and paid for them all. And that was one of the major points of me starting to get clean, because we got clean on the road. We ran out of dope. And so that was like when I made it. Of course, when I come home, I went back to using, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on, But, yeah, it was one of the failed attempts at getting sober,
Because you ran out and you weren't at home, so.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And it was already falling to pieces. We were already, getting the hell beat out of us. Which was my expertise for almost 30 years, was taking the punishment.
Yeah. So what was the final pivotal point? Like what became the bottom that you were finally like, okay, that's it, I got to stop?
I had been sober for like 10 months and finally got myself cleaned up, and me and the girl got together and we got into it, and it was a bad deal. I lost total control. But I had 3 days before that, I had gotten a kilo. I relapsed on a pound
of what, cocaine or what?
Of meth, straight from the old ice, and I'd start, and I'd got a pound, and then I thought, well, and I kind of got sober, and I thought, well, it's such a good price, I'll just get this kilo, which is a lot of dope. Okay, more than me and you can eat if the cops are coming. Okay,
it's like a brick, right? Like the size of a brick.
Yeah, it's like that. And then, but when you unfold it, it goes like this. And and 3 days later, I'm running into the woods. I live on a big 40-acre place. I've had a great successful business before this, and I'm hiding in the woods again. And I was thinking, the cops have been at the house, they're up in the attic, they're going through all that crap, they're doing their little jobs, and I'm out there in the woods, like Rambo. And so I had to turn. I knew I was going to turn myself in. I called my lawyer. I was like, I messed up. He said, yeah, I heard. And I said, well, what'd I do? He said, do you think you can get sober coming in? I said, yeah, I think so. So they went and got me a hotel room in somebody else's name. And I dug in for 3 days. I went by the Dodge store, it's like here's where they got the big, you get the fried chicken and the gas and all that. And I got me a big old box of chicken and all that. And I just dug in. And on the third day, I said, I'm ready. And of course, they locked my ass up for 90 days, just instantly off the top. And and I remember being on day 3 in jail because we were on 23-1 lockdown because of COVID. That's why I got the vaccine. I was going to go to prison. I was like, I've got to get this vaccine because they're all dying in jail. And so I stayed on the run until I got the vaccine, went and got to jail. Of course, we didn't know the vaccine was a bad deal. I just knew that I didn't want to be caught up in prison or jail and die, and so, but I remember coming down the stairs and telling because everyone in jail I knew. I'm a real big thing here in Hot Springs. I had a big restaurant, and it's well documented what I did. I outrun the police twice, all kinds of crazy crap, and I.
What were you wanted for? Like, what was your outstanding warrant that they were?
I had second-degree battery charges on me.
Gotcha. Oh, from the fight with the girlfriend. Yep.
On parole.
Yeah.
And they were all over the place. they were up in the house, going here and there. And of course, they all, every time I would act out because of, I don't know what, I hate to say it, but maybe I was just that bad. I was just, I never was a thief outside of stealing the matches. But I cooked a lot of dope. I manufactured a lot of dope. I was responsible for a lot of new ways that got of manufacturing in the Midwest, or someone close to me was. How about that? And I really took it to the extreme because I never felt like I would ever give it up. I thought I would die with it. That's just how it was. This is how it's going to be. And then when I ran out of veins, I ran out of veins. I couldn't hit myself, and that was like a depression state for like 2 years of just smoking dope, and watching porn. That's what my daily day consisted of. And it was very, very depressing.
Yeah.
It was, almost lost my life,
Yeah, well, and you're all by yourself, like, doing those things. You're not in a room full of people hanging out, well, so, I mean, I can't say I wasn't exposed to that back in my day. There were certain guys who didn't care if there were people around, but for the most part, it's a solo activity.
I mean, yeah, they don't advertise it on Facebook. Yeah. So that was the gig there. And when I got home, I was 320 pounds.
Wow.
I could not see my dick. I could not see nothing. I'm 249 today. And so that was in May of 21. I got out in September 21. And it was a bad deal, and I remember like I would wake up in the morning and I had this lake property I was trying to get developed in Airbnb and all this stuff. And before I went to jail, and I went back to it, and I would wake up and I'd ask myself, I'd go over there, I'd kind of drag my leg because I had a bad knee at that time. And I would get coffee and I'd sit down and I'd ask myself, hey man, you think you're going to make it? And I never had asked myself, I fought amateurly. I fought nationals in Austin, Texas. When I was a kid, kickboxing. I've always been a tough guy, or thought I was a tough guy. And for me to sit down and ask myself at 320 pounds, hey, do you really think you're going to make it?
Yeah.
It was a very humbling moment, And so we went back to work in the gym and on and onward.
Yeah. And so that's been pretty consistent. Have you done 75 hard? Has that been part of it?
I failed 75 hard yesterday.
Oh, what?
I dug 45 post holes and carried 4,000 pounds of concrete by Sack Creek. And that, which is an excuse. But most people would justify that as a workout. And I didn't make my second workout. And so I failed on day 21. Here we go back again. And so
are you already restarting?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I don't know if I can handle the water. I can't. It's like I'm already having problems sleeping, and it doesn't. And not taking nothing against anybody or anything anyway. But I can't seem to get enough sleep when I'm peeing. And so I don't know where I'm at. I know that I made some promises with myself that I was going to do this because we get ready to go to the expo or the convention in St. Louis. And I knew there were some things that I was going to do. I was, and I've stuck with that. But I did fail, and I want to make that clear. Yeah.
Okay. Full disclosure. Got it.
I don't want to be a pussy, man. I own it,
to be honest, I just, I'm not on it right now, but this last time that was why I failed. I was really struggling with the water because I was traveling a lot. Again, not an excuse, but when you're, zipping across time zones, you're on planes, you don't want to be that person that's up peeing every 5 minutes. And now I've lost 3 hours. And so, and I got to the point where I was like chugging that water at night, just trying to get it down. And my body just was not having it. Like, it was like, it's done. It wasn't accepting it anymore. And I just had to say, all right, until I get through this travel, I don't think this is the best for me or my body at this point in time.
Yeah, I heard you say, I was listening to one of your videos or your podcast, and you said, here I am, 51 years old, and I'm in the greatest shape of my life, and I get that. I'm 49, and I'm probably in the last 20 years, I'm probably the best, or maybe 30 years, the best shape I'm in my life. But there is just something about being 49 that, that I'm not 22 no more, and I don't sleep well, and so. Sleep is, and of course, for years I didn't want to sleep. I was totally cool with paying a lot of money not to sleep.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Maybe it's just all those years of meth where you're just not used to sleeping. It's like, no.
It may be. And of course, I had my knee replaced in December 15th, and that was a hell of a deal. Yeah, hell of a deal. And so it's been a rough couple of 6 months. We're fighting chemo with my mom. We've had the child's went crazy, and I have stayed sober. And that's been maybe that's what it is. I've never had to deal with problem solve on any level when I was like, I wasn't jacked out of my mind.
Yeah.
And only in prison. They put you in prison, I'd sober up. That's the only reason I'm alive. I was locked up. I was incarcerated for 8 years. If I'd been out those 8 years, I definitely would have overdosed or died. I mean, that's how it is. Thank God for the Department of Corrections. They heal people, believe it or not.
They do. I just needed it hung over my head for, 10 years. And that's what got me sober, is just thinking, I don't want to go to prison for 10 years.
Yeah, you're too pretty to go to prison.
Oh, thanks. Although, it was interesting because I did spend some time in jail, and I was a little worried when I went in because I'd met a lot of the girls that were sort of institutionalized, and I was like, oh shit. But at the end of the day, when they take everything away, we were all just girls, and like I was able to, I was like, not that I want to, but if I had to, I could survive. But it's not a place where, I like having choices. I like to decide on things. I don't like everything being decided for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's only so many types of ramen noodles you can eat, and sorry, I got someone out there we're recording. I apologize. There's only so many types of ramen noodles that you can eat. And I've eaten so many of them that when I come home, we were talking about, we were going to gym today, and there's somebody opened a ramen noodle house. And we laughed about it, thinking that, at what point would that's insanity.
Yeah. Also, if you grew up poor and you had ramen noodles all the time, like
Absolutely.
I know my daughter's like, oh, let's go eat ramen. I'm like, I don't know. I don't associate that with a good thing.
Yeah, right. And for those that eat ramen noodles, please don't hold it against me. I do occasionally,
Yeah, totally. But when, that was your mainstay, when you would prefer to have something else, it's not usually something you want. It's not comfort food. It's the opposite of comfort food. It's survival food.
Right. I was surviving. I was living large.
Yeah. Nice. Dang. So then, you're navigating all this crazy stuff right now. What is driving you to stay sober through all of it and not just go back to your old habits or ways? Like, what's different?
Suffering. I'm when I speak to people, I'm a real big proponent on, how I came to the conclusion that I wanted to get right was I was tired of suffering. I was on the cover of a magazine at a young age, and I had this great restaurant, super popular, and I couldn't stay. What would happen was I would have moments of grandeur where I would be sober enough and I would make this company grow, and I would go back to using, and my mom and dad would come in and fix it. Okay. And so when we sold it for $1.1 million. The reason they had sold it is because I wouldn't go to work. They were, when I started when I was like 26 in 1999. And 3 years later, I'm sitting there cutting up this cocaine in my office with this cleaver, and they peek in, they see me, and I go to prison over it. And so I go to prison for 3 years. My mom and dad come up there. At that time, they were really involved, and they become actively involved in the business. And they would send me my paperwork, on the weekends because I was in a program called a 309 program. And it was kind of like the elevated status at a county jail. I went to prison. I went to work release. It didn't work out. They locked me in a hole. I peed all over the floors because they didn't have bathrooms. They sent me back to prison. They couldn't believe I wanted to go to prison. And so I went to 309. I had an institutional knee put on me in prison because I was good with computers. I took some phone calls. I go to this place called Dallas County, Fordyce, with this legendary dude called Donnie Ford, who is still if they made police officers like him, the world would be a better place. I mean, he's one of a kind. And I started cooking for him, and they would fly the governor down, and I would go to cooking, and they'd bring people by, and I'd keep on cooking, and I just cook, because I could cook and I could throw down. And they would bring me my restaurant paperwork on the weekends, and I would do all the paperwork. And I knew we were running about almost $900,000 a year. And so when I come home the first year, we went to $1.1 million, experienced almost 20% growth. And then there shortly after, used, and it's, you know, for a long time. That's when I first discovered how to manufacture methamphetamines. And it was just, that's the common ground of all this. I think the people you interview, I was just the guy you're interviewing the other day, you know, that, you know, it's just the beat up, the beat up, the beat up, the beat up. So parents contact me and they go, what I do? I tell you what you do, just cut them loose.
Yep.
You know, and you know, with that book, when I read Codependent No More when I got out of jail for the last time. I actually read it after I was already sober, because we were still at odds, me and this girl. You know, we were sick, and I couldn't figure out what I needed to do. And so I read that book, and I was like, man, you just push the off button.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what, you know, typically the only time we like fail our clients are the ones that have family that refuse to cut them off. And
Right.
the person's like, I just want to come home, I'm fixed. And they're like, okay, I believe it. And it's like, no, you tell them they must finish the program. And, you know, and those will try to be strong, but then they'll be like, but I'll buy you a car if you complete. And it's like, no, they shouldn't get a car because they completed rehab. Like, come on,
No,
let them earn
no,
that.
you need to go to the halfway house. Yeah, that's what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've
on.
pushed towards that a lot in the last few years, because, you know, they'll have plans. A lot of people go home. A lot of people can't not go home because they have kids to support or other things. But we really push for that. Like, let them earn it back, whatever that is, without just giving it to them. Because that's where we find our strength, right?
Right. Well, it's all, my mom and dad loved, when I say this, my mom and dad literally loved me to death. Their intentions were heartfelt.
Yep.
The greatest parents of all. And some of the lessons that I looked at recently with my child and the problems we're having, when I look at them now, I get it, because I'm her dad. You know, I don't give a damn how bad you feel about me. I don't give a damn what you think. I still love you. Okay. And I want to step in, and I can't. And then, so parents, I get it. Like, it's one of those pickfold, you know, deals. But if I tell you, hey, I'm going to quit, you know, I need to prove I can quit. And I need to, and then, as you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but as being a child that has a lot, that's been always supportive, I had to find out how to perform on my own.
Yep.
At 46, I had to learn how to read. Like, this is how you. It took me a year to understand that I had to wear cologne, and you know, it's like I hadn't bought a cologne in 12 months. I wore cologne all my life. Totally deprogrammed myself. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like for normal kids, like my son, who goes off to college, and all the things I used to do for him, he kind of has to learn himself. But for those of us that didn't go to college, we had to get the, you know, at some point we had to learn this way.
Right. The whole college experience was me partying, you know, until they just, I couldn't do it no more, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, is that a conversation that you had with your family? Like, look, I got to do this on my own, or is that just something that they just followed your lead on?
They had finally, my dad had passed. I had failed my dad in death. I would not give it up. You know, I failed my sister in death. I was, you know, she was in Nashville dying. I would go down the block. I'd, you know, get a rig. I'd shoot up in that bathroom, and I'd come up, you know, and I'd try to tell her about her life. Like, she's dying. That was my way, you know. And so, and when my dad had got, you know, diagnosed with cancer, you know, naturally he was upset, you know, and I couldn't handle that. And so I just kept on, I pussed out. I was a total fucking pussy. Okay. And so you know, I'd go get high, and I went with him to treatment 2 or 3 times. And I went to jail, and they called me, and he died when I was in jail, but I was on a county sentence. I was only had a year for a county. And so they let me go home for a week, and I took him and put him in the crematorium, and, you know, and said goodbye to him. And then when I came home for this last deal, she was done. She, you know, she always used to come to see me. She never went come and see my mom. Never come to see me again. She did put no money on my books. Of course, you know, I had money already, you know, from, you know, a little bit left over from the insurance, from the restaurant burning. And I just knew it was time, you know. I mean, you know, I'm 49 years old, and I'm right where like a lot of 22-year-olds are. You know, everyone, when we hear Andy talk about, you don't want to be 50 years old. Well, bingo, here I am. You know, and so I get it. You know, but when that happened, I had to grow up. I had to grow up. I didn't want to grow up.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to give it up, but I had lost and lost and lost and lost and lost.
Yeah. Well, and I think you hit it on the head with the suffering, right? Like at some point we start to look at the pros and cons. We start to say, I could do that, but here's how it always plays out. Or like, for example, even in my program, part of one of the exercises we have them do is play the tape forward. It's like, here's this situation that happened in your life. How are you going to react? And it's like, well, normally I would go use. It's like, okay, let's play that forward. How is that going to work out for you? And if you can train your brain to start looking at not taking away people's decisions, but letting them play through how that's going to work out for them. And if we can get our brains to start to operate this way without just reacting and doing what we always do, which is, let me just go get high and forget about it. It can be very beneficial.
Yeah. When I ran out I didn't run out of money, but I knew I was running out of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I had to make that decision, and talking about therapy games, I played this game with, I went to a deal and they had my funeral. They laid you down on the floor and they had candles and they had the ceremony and people would come up and they would say their final, while you was alive, they would say their final farewell, words to you. And some of the things people said, would just crush you. Because, of that, and I remember looking back on it and I would think about that am I being that guy? Because in that moment I was really Jason, but I wasn't Jason for so long. I was some other dude,
yeah,
some monster,
Well, and well over half your life. That's a lot of being someone else that you have to sort of undo or do more of who you are. Like I've been fortunate. I remember a very pivotal point for me was like, holy crap, I've now been in recovery longer than I used. And like, oh, holy crap, now I've been in recovery longer than half my life. And so there's these little milestones that occur, which unfortunately for you, those are going to be a long time.
Yeah.
Because you were out there using so long.
Yeah, there'll be more candles on the cake that I can blow off.
Well, you better get in good shape because you're going to have to blow out all of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's been and it's come with a price. Oh Lordy, Angie, you go on and on. I've had the labs blow up in my face. I've been shot at. I've been stabbed. I've done everything you can do. I've lost. I think one of the most things is you lose good people.
Yeah.
As you make this voyage, and when people start losing hope in you, you kind of start losing the hope in yourself. And you start believing the hype, and then you just hammer harder.
Yeah.
And so it's led me through some voyages. I've been incarcerated 8 years. I've seen some crazy crap, and I've done about everything you can do. I even prostituted myself out on, I'm not even gay, but I found myself in that situation. I would, because I don't know, I went to this point in my life where, I was abused as a child by a family member, which I'm not going to play that victimization. This shit happens to a lot of people and everybody moves on with their life. But what I would do is I would finally, after I would dig in my arm for an hour, I'd finally get a connection, get a red shirt. I'd punch that syringe in and I'd be thinking, man, it's fixing to be great. And I would think about that shit. And I'd wonder, did I like that? It was like a total mind fuck. Okay.
And not in a good way.
Oh yeah, no. Or I'd be sitting there, I'd be butt ass naked. I'd have this good looking girl that was butt ass naked. I done got her high, and she would have to watch me struggle to get high for hours, and all the fit throwing, and blood would be everywhere, on the floor, across my face. There'd be 16 syringes full of blood. Where I would just constantly, just over and over again. It's it's kind of like you get worked up in the gym. That's kind of how I get worked up at this needle. Yeah. And so eventually you just start this.
Yeah.
And so by the time I finally got it, it was success. She was done. She was.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Yeah. And that was for years.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because I told you about my little stints in jail, but that was two things that I noticed. If I continued on my way, I would end up doing heroin, which would end up in prostitution because you can't, most people can't afford that kind of habit unless they're doing things to support that habit. And I grew up poor. So, you know, there wasn't money out there for me to support that kind of habit. And then, like you said, with the body, I noticed there's a whole nother addiction for a lot of people with that needle. And so, you know, in jail, there's girls have scarring up and down their arms where they, you know, passed out and burnt themselves, but also just like you said, just trying to hit. And so even though I'd only spent like a month or two in jail, but just being around that, not that they're bad people, they're all really good people for the most part. But I knew for myself that, you know, if I continued on that path, that was going to be my future.
Right. And they all start off as good children.
Yeah.
You know, they all start off as little, you know, with dreams and aspirations. I don't ever remember on career day or show and tell going to the teacher, you know, what do you want to be? I want to be a junkie. I want to be an ex-con. It just doesn't happen. And so and everybody, you know, thank God I'm around, you know, through Arte and through people now. I'm around tough people that'll take the ass beating. They don't give a damn how I react. You know, they're going to tell me, hey, this is, you know, you're on. All right. And it's sad, it's because of our emotions and our little fucked up feelings and how we feel about someone may say something about us. You know, we'll see something like that. We'll say, well, man, that dude's really jacked up. He's really a good dude, but we won't say nothing because we're scared that, hey, we may be put on target. Well, guess what? Get out the bullseye, bozo, because I think we need more of it, because there's just so many people that are slipping through the deals, and it's a mental health crisis. Well, it starts with a choice.
Well, and I think that's the problem is we now survive in a society which almost enables victim mentality, have a label, have these problems. This is why you don't have to like excel, succeed, or even be accountable because you have all these either, you know, labels or addiction, or you're suffering from this disease. And so it's kind of giving everybody an excuse to not be 100% accountable and successful in their lives. And that's a comfortable spot for a lot of people. They would prefer that as opposed to pushing hard. And look, we don't want to go to the gym all the time. We don't want to do a lot of the shit we do, but we do it because we know it makes us better people.
Right. And I'm not Lou Ferrigno. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know, I'm not Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm just a guy that got his ass kicked, you know, and better yet, kicked his own ass, that somehow got through that. You know, and the pain and suffering is, that we all talk about, a lot of people, you inspirational guys, it's real stuff, and it builds. That's what builds champions.
Yeah.
You know, I think it may have been, I don't know, it may have been you that was talking about Michael Phelps. You know, and I trained 365 days a year for 5 years.
Yeah.
For one day.
Putting in those reps. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for one day, you know.
Yeah.
That's some tough shit.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And not to see those results for that long. So many people would give up because, again, and that's another thing about today is we want instant results. And when we don't see it, we're like, move on, try something else. I don't like that. You know, everybody just wants that quick hit, that instant result. And good things take time.
There's always something better, or this program's better, or you got some bozo trying to sell you this. And we're so naive because we don't want to look at the real solution. It's in the mirror.
Yeah.
Solution's in the mirror. And however you want to look at, I mean, you've got to have some faith. People have their little different views of faith, but if you ain't got faith, you're fucked. Okay. And so you got to have some faith bigger than you, and the mirror. And we don't want to look at that.
Yeah.
We don't want to look at that. That's a tough one.
It is.
I said, people are like, what do you do? I said, well, just strip down naked and get in front of the mirror. Get you on a full length mirror. And most people can't look at it for 5 minutes. And if you can't do that, fix what you can't so you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, Goggins was the one that opened my eyes to that, boy. The way he would speak is like, damn, he's right. You know, I just love it because obviously he's as extreme as they get. And I think that's why a lot of people who, you know, don't love it because it's, oh, that's just him. He's crazy. It's like, but what he's talking about applies to everybody. You don't have to be his level of athlete for that stuff to be applicable. You just have to take accountability and responsibility for having created whatever's in your life and fixing it and doing the work and to do that. And a lot of that is looking in the mirror. It's putting the stickies on the mirror. It's calling a spade a spade. You're a fat fuck or whatever it is. It's like, it is what it is. Like, let's not be soft about it. You're never going to cure yourself by tiptoeing around what's reality.
Even when you have to admit failing, you know, there's a lot of, there's a lot of people that won't admit it. You
Right.
know, that's a big step to say, hey, no one's watching me. Angie Manson didn't know I failed today. You know, now she does. That's
Yeah.
a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't want to, they want to, they're so concerned about what other people think. Hey, you know, I got this drug problem, but I can't say nothing.
Right.
You know, or hey, I like to have sex this way. You know, and I can't say nothing. No one gives a fuck. No one. Everyone's got. We're more concerned about you swinging a fucking hammer.
Right.
You know, and I'm like you. At some point, listen, I'm not David Goggins. Okay, I never will be David Goggins, but I could be Jason Davis.
Yeah.
You know, and why that, you know, and you could be Angie.
Yep.
And that's enough if I'm in the real.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you keep calling me the recovery queen, then, you know, I'm good. My work is done.
Get it tattooed right here.
Right? Yeah, that'll be my next poster on the wall. It's like, I got to get that in there.
This dude's got me on his neck.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
and how is it for you having, did you say you have one child, two kids?
I have one child, and it's a very tough deal. She's really put us in some tough stuff. I missed a court appearance. My mom's, like I said, but I take care of my mom for chemo, and we've had to file a motion. I've had 75 court appearances. I've never missed one, and I missed this one, and I missed it for the right reasons. And so we'll get it worked out. But she got on the stand the other day, and this deal, and we didn't have a problem with her going to mothers, but we you know, she had some tough things to say about me, because when I came home as a dad. You know, and she didn't like that. She didn't like being disciplined, or, hey, dad's trying to parent me.
Yep.
And it caused a lot of problems.
How old was she when that happened?
Which she's 14 now. That's when but she was 11 when I came home, almost 12. And then I had been in her early part of, you know, the years she can't remember, I was a good dad, 1 through 5. You know, and then I just went off the deep end, outrun the police, all kinds of crazy stuff. I was talking about today, I'd outrun the police, and I'd borrowed someone's car. Someone had drove me out of this $1 million mansion right past the cops and let me out in the woods. And then I'd gotten a purple wig, and seriously, a purple wig. And I was driving this Tonka size, you know, Blazer, just, and going to the dope man's house. You know, and while they were, on the lookout, Bravo, they had, you know, everything locked down, because this cop had pulled me over, and I left him. I just left him holding the gun. You know, I had to go.
Where the heck did you find a purple wig? Like, how'd that
no
happen? That's not a typical go bag. Like,
it was a purple sequin wig. And the girl I used to date, she liked to wear wigs. That was her. She get high and put on wigs. Okay. And it was somehow it was in the house or something. I grabbed it, and I put this wig on. You know, here I go, you know, down to, you know, this ripping and roaring. And later, you know, I got busted 4 times in 5 weeks.
Oh yeah. That's when, you know, the inside of you wants to get caught. When you get caught that much and they keep letting you go, and you get caught again, it's like, there's a cry for help there. Right. There's a cry for help. Yeah.
The last one, and it was some bogus stuff. I mean, it was like, I was involved, but legally I probably could have beat him. They told me, yeah, you probably beat this one. You beat this one, but you're going to take this package deal, because this one you ain't going to beat. Mm-hmm. And they were right. I wasn't going to beat it. And so they were going to put me in a jury trial as habitual. And so I got 74 years the last round. That's the second round, all for nonviolent offenses. And my mom was like, she's in the courtroom, and this judge is trying to, you know, she's asking me, did you, and I'm saying, and she said, I'll never forget it. The judge would ask you, hey, did you deliver such and such? And I would say, absolutely. And my mom's jaw would drop as she watched this. And so this is after, I don't know if did you see Derek Estelle escape through, it was on national news. Yeah, he's in this booking room, and he jumps through this hole, and this cop jumps through the hole, and they go running out. He runs off from where I'm at in this county jail. That was his second attempt. Okay. The first attempt, he was tied to me. We had a shackle. The shackleless, they walked over the courtroom, and he spits out a handcuff key. He says, "You want to go with me?" So I'm like, "Dude, hell no." And so, long story short, he jumps over the deal and hits this bailiff, right? I mean, he's tied to me. All right. He undoes it. I don't say shit. He undoes it. Hits this bailiff. Bam. Okay. And the bailiff grabs his gun. And as he's coming over the gun, I can hear, look, it's in a courtroom. And I hear my mama going, "Oh my. Oh my."
Oh,
Because the gun's like across the people.
oh, wow.
I'll never forget. It was a surreal moment in court. Kids, like, there was people yelling and screaming, but I could hear my mama going, "Oh my." I swear to God. So he went off and they caught him. And he told him I gave him the key, right? And of course they turned me upside down, and I told him I'd made it from soap, just to be a smart ass. And then months later he runs out for real. It's on the national news. It's gone for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he was determined, boy.
Derek's Derek's one of he's one of those genetic freaks.
Yeah.
Gift guy.
Well, I'm going to back up real quick because when I asked you the question about when you came into life and the stuff that your daughter has struggled with, it's interesting because for me, I grew up as an only child, and my mom didn't bring any men into my life until I was about 12 years old. And by then I'd already been running amok, wreaking havoc. I'd already started drinking, using, cutting, school, stealing, all that kind of stuff. And so this guy comes in, very nice guy, but all of a sudden he wants to like parent me and tell me, like to act like my dad. And I was like, "Who the fuck are you? Like, excuse me?" And so I rebelled so hard against that. So I absolutely understand what your daughter's going through, because I went through the exact same thing, except he wasn't my biological dad, but he was somebody that was trying to step in to dad me. And it after I'd already been off the rails, and it didn't go well.
And I don't think this is going to go well. I don't think there's no magic solution except the solution, and that's where you just let them play it out, and it's tough to watch. I think a lot of people, when they get sober, after all the shit they put their family through and everything, they wonder if their children are going to turn out like them. It's a big fear, and you're like, are my kids going to do what I did to my family? And we started seeing some signs and some problems, and I was just trying to be a dad, and like you said, it wasn't received well.
Yeah.
And I would take her to the gym and all this, blah blah. But not getting technical about it. But I was trying to do what dads do, and it wasn't received well.
Yeah. Well, I think just keep being there, and unconditional love, and you already know, not enable, but help. When they're doing well.
Yeah, and that's what I want to. Because of the judgment, because I didn't show up, I got a severe judgment, 10-year protection order against my child. Like I said, that's the standard default deal that happens if you don't show up. I didn't know that. But with that stated, I think like we watch addicts, I think you need to let people go through some things.
Yeah.
Which is tough.
Dude, super tough, especially with kids these days because of the fentanyl that wasn't a thing when I was out running around. But seeing how many kids are dying from this nowadays, that's real tough.
Right. I think it's even deeper than that. We can get everyone right now, get on your aluminum tinfoil. Here we go. But I think it's all part of that agenda to run this age class out of this country, so there's no one to defend it, and then they can just mop us on over. Blase. You already know how I feel about it.
Yeah. Well, it's super sad to see because, like we talked about, when I was running amok, if I probably easily would have got a hold of that. But these days, kids, it could be their first time. It could be one little pill. It could be laced in weed. It's like they're putting that shit in anything and everything. So, back in the day, to overdose, you either had to do copious amounts of it, or I guess every now and then someone would get some bad heroin. But, at the point that you're doing heroin, you're already like down a pretty dark sort of path. So just seeing so many innocent people dying these days, it's a tough one to watch. And there's just not a lot of information out there to educate the families or the kids or anything about what's really going on.
Well, you live in denial. Who wants to say my son's a drug addict? He wants... you want to discount it. You want to discount it. You want to discount it. Well, maybe he's just having a bad day. Well, and the problem with the fentanyl is I've shot fentanyl back when he pulled it out of the patches and all that crap. I've done it all, and I'm not trying to glamourify that at all. I'm just saying that, speaking from a level of experience, it wasn't my thing, but it's an intentional deal. It's a very intentional thing that me and you both know it. That it's designed to eradicate us from our freedoms and the hope of our freedoms. And at 100,000, it's killed more people than car wrecks.
And yet you still see very little information on it.
It's
astounding. I mean, I try to talk about it in every podcast in hopes that, people are listening and being aware and educating themselves. Cause it's the real epidemic for sure.
Yeah, it doesn't have, and the bad thing about fentanyl is it doesn't have a forgiveness point. You do not, how I react to it and how you may react to it is two different things. Because I've seen hardcore, meth IV users. Like back when you used to get the patches, you could take the patch and you could do it like you'd smoke hash. You would, and we could take it. And I'd see them lay over and code right there, turn blue, we'd pump on, get going. Mm-hmm. And these were seasoned junkies. And how it would affect me, it wouldn't do that. It would suppress my cardiovascular system. So you might think you're getting a hit of X, or you might think you're getting. We had a girl here that works the courts that was on the D-Lo. She was using meth, and it was in the meth, and it killed her, dead her in a doornail.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing that is why it is like that. So, China is putting it into Mexico, and Mexico is mixing it and putting it into all the different forms, but Absolutely. It's an imperfect science. So you have a whole bathtub of the shit, and this side might be super concentrated and this side not so much. So two people can take the exact same thing, and one is a lethal dose and the other, just gets them really high, but you never know what you're getting again.
No, the pharmacology of synthetic heroin is not a hard one. There's so many different isotopes that are right in the area of that you're to make like when you're at the super lab status and you're making phenols or methamphetamine, you're at the precursor to the precursor level, which means you've got to take the precursor and make another precursor before you can make the raw goods, and then you can actually do the synthesis to make the raw product. In most phenylalanine type, what we call, most people talk about the phenyl 2-propanol dope, right? Well, with these analogs that we're using in synthetic heroin, we're talking about, we're like one step off. And so it's coming into the country, another country, totally legal, because it's not even on a registered list. Mm-hmm. And then it's, like we see, like when we made ANAP, where you can take what we call in a step called hydrolysis. Look, hydrolysis is real simple. It sounds fancy. You're just adding acid to a solution. Okay, that's what we call hydrolysis, right? In a nutshell. I don't want nobody in college chemistry, and so a lot of these analogs are producing final grade results with real easy steps. And then, of course, like you're saying, they're packaging it, and their intent is to sell more. The cartel's business is to be like Walmart and have everybody their customer. Mm-hmm. And so if you can introduce an analog, I shot heroin twice in Dallas, and I shot it one day, and I shot it the next day, and then the next day we came home, and this dude hits me with 70 units of meth, right, which is a big shot, right? And I did that shot, and I looked at him, and I started contemplating the human experience. What's the meaning of man and origin, And the girl that was with me, she looked at me and she goes, "You're dope sick." And I said, "What do you mean?" I didn't know. She said, "You're already hooked on heroin. You're already going through withdrawals." It took 2 shots. Yeah. And so fentanyl is even worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And it can get it anywhere, and it's super cheap. Back in the day, heroin, it was a very costly habit. Nowadays, not so much. You can get hooked very easy, and it's super cheap.
Yeah, at least it came from poppies.
Yeah. Yeah, but it had to go through the whole import process, the whole making process. Now it's just like, being sent over here and giant things from China. So super easy to manufacture for them.
Yeah, well, they put the precursors in place in Mexico, and then what they've done is they put and of course, this is all indoctrinated in my mind because I know how this works, but they take a couple of guys that can do a little chemistry from China that comes over to the cartels and shows them how to do it, and then they're off and running.
Yep.
Yeah, and people are like, I can't believe you're saying this on TV or whatever. Well, someone needs to say it.
Yeah, and it's not like we're glamorizing or telling anybody to do it, but we're just saying how simple it's become, which is why it's so prevalent and it's not going away.
Who we didn't have an opioid. We thought we had an opioid deal with the pain pills. We thought we really had something going on with these doctors writing scripts. Listen, if we could get back to that point, we were doing okay.
Yeah.
Because now it's gotten bad. It is a very bad deal. And for the people that don't know, you're right. You need to educate yourself, especially if you've got children or you've got young people in your life that seem to have everyone's got a stroke. You got a stroke. I've got a stroke. And that's how people close to you know that you're using because you miss something. You throw the stroke. My dad would ask me something, and I'd go, seriously, I would hate myself because he would ask me, he would say something to me, and I would be nervous, and I'd go, buh. He said, you're high.
He could tell right away.
I hate myself. Just told on myself. So he would ask me, so I would say something, But yeah, and you got to realize that, you got to be on. The parenting game has changed.
Yeah. Well, and I know a lot of parents are afraid to talk about because they think they're going to expose their kids. And I'm like, listen, you think they're not being exposed through social media, YouTube, their friends, their friends' older siblings, like they're already being exposed because of you talking to them. At least give them accurate information because what they're getting from every place else, and they are getting it, do not fool yourself, is more glamorized and not good.
The big turning point between me and my daughter was the phone. I asked for the phone. She wouldn't give me the phone. So naturally I grabbed the phone. Okay. And it turned into a big deal. Okay.
I bet.
And when I got the phone, what I found out was it was just as bad or worse than I thought it was. And my mother was kind of like still enabling her. Oh, that ain't true. There's no way. Jason, you're wrong. You're an asshole. I was like, listen, man, I'm going for the gusto here. Call me. And so I finally had to take the text messages and show my mother because she was the guardian of she's raised my daughter because I was jacked up, and we all live real close to each other. And it really broke her heart. There's nothing like being a parent and you realize that how do I say this? You only fail them if you don't do nothing about it.
Right.
But reality can make you feel like a failure.
Oh yeah.
And so if you got a minor in your life that and you pay the phone bill, because if you don't pay the phone bill and it's their phone, they will lock your ass up for something with a cellular device. But who gives a damn? What's a misdemeanor charge? That's your kid. Grab hold of that phone.
Yeah. And
that phone's going to tell you everything that they're doing.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, and there's so much, you can't violate their trust. You can't do this, but it's like for their protection, because in their minds, especially teenagers, they feel like they know best and they've yet to actually live life and support themselves and understand the consequences of their actions. They also feel invincible. And so, and it's hard to be that parent to break that trust or interlude on their privacy, but it's almost like necessary to keep them safe these days.
Well, they challenge parents, right? And then they got all this noise about gender studies and can your kid be a man or a boy at whatever age and whatever. And what we're seeing is the flowback from that is that there's the new term is transitioning. I'm trying to detransition from a huge mistake that I was encouraged by my parents to make about how God made me. Okay. And now I can't get back there. And so, I can't get back there. I'm on to, I've changed my sexual orientation because I felt a certain way. And now I realize I was wrong. But the problem is I can't get back there.
Right.
Okay. And so a lot of that same scenario would have been solved by saying, hey, you're going to wait till you're adult. Yeah. And until you're an adult, I'm going to play the adult role in your life. you know, and I speak to my daughter and everyone very just like I speak now, and I may be wrong or I don't know, but I'm the real deal, you know. And if you ask me a question, you get a answer I'm going to stand on. And so a lot of people agree with it, a lot of people don't agree with it, and I don't really give a damn, you know. But I know that at some point in my life, I don't want to go into grave. You know, I've already got enough regret. I don't need no more. You know, if I can lighten the load a little bit, you know, if I, you know, maybe that sounds good. You know,
Yeah.
I got enough. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the things that it's probably one of the biggest truths for me is I don't want to live with the regret that I felt like I should have done something. I wanted to do something, but something made me not do it. And then something catastrophic happens, you know, so I don't ever want to live with those regrets. So I will reach out to people. I will do things. I will step on toes. I will do whatever I got to do at that moment if I feel like it's the right thing to do to help that person. And sometimes that comes with a cost. Sometimes people disconnect from you or they don't want to talk to you anymore or whatever it is. But I would much rather live with the regrets of trying than not.
Truth or dare? You live with it now?
Live with who?
Has it happened?
For what?
Well, you didn't say nothing.
What do you mean?
Well, you said that I don't want to relive with regret where I see something and I didn't. Have you made that mistake where you didn't say something?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I've ran you know, this rehab for 29 years, and there's definitely impingements as an employer that you can't, especially in California, always take. But you know, I've had to come to terms with times where I felt like I should have said something because I see something and didn't, and seen the bad results of that. And so, you know, yeah, I've definitely, that's why I'm so resolute in this, because I've lived both sides of it.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I, you know, and in your case, you got a lot more variables and all this and healthcare control, I mean, out of my mind. But on a personal level, you know, as you know, Jason the person, Angie the person, and outside the recovery model or business on the streets, just me and you, or me or you person, I can't miss that. I can't. The other day I was driving home, and I don't know what it is here lately. I don't know if it's the inflation or whatever, but I got a big construction sign outside my house, and I've had in the last month I've had 2 guys call me and ask me for gas. You know, naturally I'm like, well, you high? Yeah, I'm just about to ask them, you fucked up? Yeah, that ain't gonna.
Right, because that's kind of random. Like, who does that?
Well, I mean, because that's where I go with it. And I'm like, well, as long as you don't steal my shit, I'll get you some gas. Okay, yeah. I ain't messed up. And so, you know, I'm coming home at 9 o'clock at night. It's raining, and I see this guy walking, and he's right by the gate. We got a big gate, you know, the closed door stuff, and I couldn't do it. I rolled down and I said, hey, let's get in the car. And this guy he's why we have a system to take care of people. He was lost. He didn't know where he was going. He was going to Sonic, but he was going the wrong way from Sonic. And you know, and he had a really cool name. I can't remember his name, but you know, and I had this hat on, right, my little company hat, and we get in the car, and I could tell that, you know, he was challenged, and it wasn't, you know, and I said, well, you know, that's a good thing, because I'm a little crazy too, you know, and blah blah blah. And we go out, where you want to go? And we looked on the phone for 3 or 4 times. You know, it's going bad. It's costing me time. I'm like, I don't want to. I said, hey, we got to get you somewhere. I said, he said, well, is there a shelter somewhere? I said, yeah. And so I took him to this, you know, we went around town. I found a shelter, got him to the shelter. And he said, I like your hat. You have this hat, you know. And, you know, I got him on his way. And, you know, and it cost me a little time. I'm not tooting my own horn, but, you know, we hear it too in the show, you know, if you don't talk about it, it doesn't inspire nobody. And if you do talk about it, it's kind of like you're cheating your own horn. Well, fuck it. You know, we need to talk about being somebody to somebody that needs us every once in a while, you know. Yeah. And it's important. You know, a lot of people are afraid they're going to get killed. You know, I get that too.
Well,
yeah,
as a female, I could never do that. You know,
yeah,
I mean, I could, but I shouldn't. You know, that wouldn't be
I don't recommend it
for me.
I don't recommend it. And you know, and so I get all that, but at some point we got to get back to the variable. What's our real mission? Our real mission is to, you know, because it's pretty evident that shit's going into the hell in a basket and hand, you know, pretty quick. That we got to stand on some things. and those are excellence and purpose, and making money's great. I think it's a good thing. I don't have no problem. I want to make all the money in the world, but I want to help people more than anything.
Yeah.
I want to. When we say legacy, I want to when they, because I ain't gonna be buried. I'm going in a roaster. In case anybody wants to do a line of me.
I know. I always tell my kids, turn me into jewelry. Like, I know you can like fire it up and it turns into a really hard stone, and then just like make me a necklace or something. They're like, God, you're morbid, Mom. I'm like, but what? I think it'd be awesome. I'll be with you forever.
On your wedding night.
Yeah. Just, have your mom along. No big deal.
Yeah, we're sick. I think I like that too. I'm like, because there's got to be something in death that's more creative than what we are in life.
Yeah.
There's got to be. We all know that energy never is destroyed or created. It's just here. First law of physics. And so what's that like? And in the end game, I don't try to. I believe in God. I'm a Christian. My views are probably not Christian-like. But I know I serve a purpose.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that for years. I served Jason.
Yeah. But that's got to feel good at the end of the day, right? Like you're finally like taking all that passion and purpose for being a really good dope fiend into being a really good human being.
I think about all the time about how hard I would go. I would go hard on this dope, man. And put one in my mouth, whatever I needed to do, to get my fix. And so when I look at it now, because we're restarting a company, we're less than 2 years, into making, and all the battle points of getting off the ground, when you ain't got no money and all this and the good stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, why are you so hard? Why won't you just lay down and go get you a Walmart job and be happy and, live your little life? I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But I would I'd rather them wrap me up and burn me at the stake than have to do that. Fuck it. It ain't in it ain't in there. I don't know why I'm that way. I wasn't that way in the dope game. I wasn't, so naturally it just transitioned over to this other thing. So, I talk about a lot of complex things, a lot of things that are mentally issues that a lot of men don't want to talk about. We talk about sucking dick. A lot of people are like, that dude's a pussy or, a fag or whatever. Okay, good. That's your point of view. That's not, that was just a moment in my life that I went through. And it was, I'm not going to say it was all because of the dope, but dope played a huge role in it. And what I found is there's a lot of men that have done that shit. They're going, I can't believe you said that.
Yeah.
It happened. I did that too. Well, good. I'm not saying we got to join a fan club, but let's get the fuck over it. Let's move on. Because it don't make a fuck what everybody said. Did my opinions of you pay your bills today? Hell no.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. People are so concerned about what everybody thinks about everything. Like everything they do, it's about, but how are people going to perceive that? Or what are they going to think about that? Who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares? Are you happy at the end of the day? Do you make yourself happy? Do you do things that make you feel good about yourself?
Most of the time. Most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, we're not perfect. We're imperfect. There is no perfect human being. So we don't always make the right choices or always do the right things.
I'm sure you see that in a recovery scene where you've got some families of, elevated status. And I have this child, that's, on the wrong end, and it's causing a social conflict in their view. Have you seen that? Is that, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sure. And it's interesting because if you look at drug addiction and our handling of drug addicts, we're prone to cover it up. Look, like the whole HIPAA, AANA, it's all anonymous. And I get it. We want people to want help, but at the same time, that doesn't really help with the stigma of overcoming an addiction. Own that shit. Who cares? But you're right. There is a lot of people that are, want to keep it on the DL or keep it out of the public light for sure.
And I heard you speak about this, about there's some point in which you go from saying, and I've thought about this a lot myself, okay, because this fucked me up, right? And I felt this way, and then I kind of felt like I was in uncharted territory. At what point do I say, I'm not an addict?
Mm.
What do you say about that? Because I've heard you speak about this. There's got, if you believe you're something,
Yeah.
what's your views on that?
I think that you're not, if you're not currently suffering from the ramifications of being a drug addict. You know, if it's still a struggle, I certainly wouldn't say you shouldn't. But if you've overcome that shit and you're pretty resolute in the fact that I'm not going to relapse or use, why would you? Why would you call yourself an addict every day if you're not using?
Don't you kind of coach that isn't that part of your recovery model?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the things that resonates with the majority of people who've been to other programs and weren't successful, and why they came to ours, because they said, you know, it was so disempowering every day to say, I'm Angie and I'm an addict, even though I haven't used, like labeling myself, keeping myself in that box, and day after day, minute after minute, like it just doesn't resonate with everybody. It definitely works for a lot of people, and they kind of need that constant reminder to remind them of where they came from, but that doesn't work for everybody.
Right. Okay, man. I'm Jason the dick sucker, but I ain't sucked one in years.
Right. Let me put in my disclaimer. Yeah, exactly. It's like, no, you would still just be Jason the dick sucker, whether you've had one in your mouth for a minute or 10 years.
Finally got over that one. I get it. Yeah, I thought about that, because I speak to a lot of people, and I'm like, I've been very fortunate. I'm very grateful to have a big following, into my little world, and never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing. And, how to address that, because, there's, I know there is a boundary, and and I can have a drink. I don't drink a lot, but I can have a social drink. I don't really like alcohol, but if I put one bit of that shit in my arm or snort me a line, it's over.
Done.
And I know that.
Yeah.
So how do I express that? And I've been very honest about it, but because I'm Jason, I'm an addict, I get that, but I don't get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point you can't be defined by your past. And, I would just use that as the guide. Like, is it ruining or ruling your life right now? No. Your boundaries. Like, I know for a fact I can never go back to meth. Obviously, I would lose everything that I've built. Like, that's not even an option.
Yeah.
But I don't have to call myself an addict every day in order to not do it either.
Do you know how many times I've proven that theory? At least 30 or 40 times. Yeah, I cannot use meth.
Yeah.
I can't dump truck it. I can't eat it. People are like, why don't you just eat it? Because I'll be just okay, let's eat something, and like eat a rock, and whatever was going to happen, but I just couldn't. I never can. I can start off with a little snort. I could do whatever, but every freaking time it always ends up in handcuffs.
Yeah. And now you associate it with that. You don't associate it. You're not thinking of all the pleasure moments, all the good things that happen. You're immediately thinking of what's going to end up happening. And that's the deterrent. When you've like reprogrammed your brain to remember the bad things and not the good things, I think that's when we've overcome it.
I believe so. It was a hard one because the whole meth sex connection that a lot of people don't understand unless you just done the shit. It was a big issue, and especially like in recovery, that first year, you get so blown up. I've heard you talk about this. Meth was so appealing to you because I'm like you. I have to, I constantly overeat. I like food. I don't even cook no more because I got you throw the fucking lasagna out there. I'm gonna try to I'm gonna have me a good time with it. And and so when I got on meth, I was like, well, that's really good. I'm losing weight. And then it turned to me this perverted weirdo, that would like watch porn, and I'd try to mimic everything in the porn for hours. Okay. For hours, days, it would go on, and that kind of gave me this superior being complex, that I could really dominate somebody in the bedroom. Mm-hmm. And then what happened, eventually I started getting fat, and then that went away.
Yeah, it started working against you. All the stuff that you liked it for no longer worked.
Mm-hmm. It's the crazy stuff. Kids stay away from drugs. So
Yeah, stay away from drugs. I used to hang out with guys, and they give these drugs and they're thinking, oh, we're going to get these girls, me and my best friend in bed, give them a bunch of meth. And we're like, no, I'll clean your house though. Where's your dishes? give me your duster. Like I'm not into all that other shit, but I'll definitely clean your house.
Yeah,
And they're like, fuck, well, okay, I'll take the clean house.
yeah, I've been see it. Yeah, you're a good girl. You didn't go too far. That's good. Yeah.
Well, like I said, I hung around people who'd gone further, and for me, I knew where I was heading, and I had a bigger purpose in this life. Like I said, I came into this world knowing I wanted to help people. Was always kind of that friend that helped people, and I knew that would not put me on the path to help people. Maybe inside the prison system I could have, but again, I think I could do far more good out here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the value exchange over a chaplain's aid is in prison, but it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not really good.
No. I mean, and makeshift lawyer, like I don't like reading that much. So yeah, no, this is definitely a better path for me for sure.
I've seen 3 people executed. I didn't see them executed. I've seen a woman in Arkansas. They drowned her kids. They walked her around and they killed her the next day. And then where I was at the unit, the old mod unit, looking at Cummins, you could see the whole procedures of how these guards would come in, locked arms, and then they bring they'd have the execution. They bring the execution in later, and they bring the body out in the body bag. We got to see all that. But that's really the only day that the penitentiary fries chicken is whenever they kill somebody in Arkansas. And so they have this big dinner, statewide correctional center. And that's the only day one of the only days. I mean, there's a few holidays, maybe Easter, that they put icing on the cake. And back in them days, you had the old. Now you just got a hole in the wall, right? You just got a hole in the wall that serves a tray. But back in them days, they had the low like buffet servers with a glass over them,
Mm-hmm.
And invariably someone would get pissed off about their piece of cake, and they would like buffalo, like when you see the fighting bulls jump out of the arena,
Mm-hmm.
Go up in the stands. That's what it looked like.
Oh my gosh. They took that icing seriously.
Yeah, they called it fighting cake. And so those are my memories of executions and the JC's icing on the cake. Eventually I served gravy and grits one time in the kitchen for 2,500 people. I had a ladle in each hand, And I was so customer service oriented because I came from a restaurant. I was like, "Hey, good morning. How you doing?" And so the next time I came back from work release, they put me on this ain't Wes Watson material. He'd laugh about this shit, but they put me on. I had to wipe tables, and so they put me on a table. And so I thought maybe I was like at the restaurant. I was like a busboy, and so I'd be wiping tables and getting tables ready for people, working my little magic, hey, y'all sit here and directing traffic and shit. And I'd forgotten that there was pork-free tables. And I had the same rag that I was wiping everybody's table on the pork. And I would get pissed off. I couldn't figure out, yeah, man, I got this clean. It's a damn wonder someone didn't stab me right in my neck.
Because they do that for less.
Yeah, I mean, I still had a little, I was a big dude, and everybody knew who I was, and they watch a lot of it. A lot of people watch me on TikTok from down there right now, and they apparently I got a big following on penitentiary on stolen cell phones or hot cell phones. But yeah, it's stupid shit I was doing, man.
So how does that happen? How do you become a sensation on TikTok? Like what was your first viral video, or how did that happen?
I had 2 accounts before we had Jason with a felony, and I couldn't figure out why they would ban my videos, but I finally read that after they banned one account, they banned the next one. I would have really good success and make these little videos about work or crazy shit. When I heard Andy Priscilla speak, I thought, man, that's what I want to do. Okay, that dude's finally saying the stuff I want to say. And a lot of my stuff I could get off his shows, and I turn it my little way and twist it, and I always give him credit for it, But I finally someone saying so, but I didn't know why they were blocking my videos because it had pin, and I was like, "What's pin?" Well, it's because I was putting my phone number on the front of it, And so I put my phone number on there, and then finally when I read the rules, I started this account called Jason with a Felony, And I've had a few. The first one I had was called Gay Cows, and it was talking about I ain't never seen no gay cow, and I was talking I thought it, and it went like crazy. And then there's been a few other ones, and of course the recent one is me cut my mom's hair and my hair, and then I don't know, you just work at it. TikTok's been really good to me. I know it's probably got, I ain't gonna lie, it's probably got some security concerns, but so does having hot air balloons go across our country.
Yeah.
They
have all the information they need. Like, we don't have to worry about shit like that. They already got it.
We're the fucking peasants. Okay. I believe that. I believe there's an ultra class that believes that they're here to control us under the guise of democracy. And they're using every tool. I mean, think about this. In 1978, we had GPS, and you're my age. You remember this. It was year 2000 until Bill Clinton said, "Hey, we're going to decrypt this thing. You're going to have GPS." So they had GPS for 22 years, basically, and then something came along that was better. We don't know what that is, and so now we're seeing the emergence of Chat GPT. And if you think what we're seeing is with all of Chat GPT, you're out of there. We're seeing the tail potential, maybe just a replay of what Chat GPT and AI really is doing in our country. Because I got a buddy who works for digital, he does display ads, and already he can, you can buy data from Google, and then they'll geofence your data points, neighborhoods, and houses, and they'll send those display ads to that set of phones.
Yeah.
And that's totally legal.
Yeah.
It's totally legal. There's nothing wrong with that. And so our perception is, we have a perception that the news should be the truth. We think that, people are telling us the truth. No, they're just telling you what they want you to hear.
Yeah. The thing that's super scary about Chat GPT is that it can mimic us. It'll just listen to one of our podcasts, hear our voice, and you can get it to say whatever you want. And so people's identities are going to be, stolen as influencers. And it's people better beware. Like, there's some fun and cool things about it. Like, I could write a book in like 10 minutes, but then there's the other side of it, which it's going to completely wreak some havoc for sure.
And we don't know what the point I'm making is we are seeing it as new technology. What I'm saying is it's probably already 20 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just having access to it now. That's the difference, is they're finally allowing us to access what they've already had access to.
Yeah. I was listening to a marketing podcast, and they were talking about they could feed like one little script into Chat GPT and just tell it, "Hey, will you do this on Twitter and blah, 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 blah," in your natural language. And it would replicate this in a matter of 10 nanoseconds. And push this out to social media of 9 different formats and create 1,000 different posts from it. And so you would just flog, all about simply just telling it to do this,
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time pushing videos and all that, and so it's appealing, scares the piss out of me.
Yeah.
Scares the living hell out of me.
Yep. Yeah. It's a world we're living in.
Just keep hitting them with that fentanyl.
Yeah, right. Oh man. All right, cool. So tell me, so what are you working on now? We've got your TikTok famous TikToks, and you have a clothing line, is that correct?
We started a little apparel company. We had a lot of this is for all you online marketers and print on demand guys that everyone wanted a shirt until they were available. And you'll learn that. And so we
now you have a big warehouse full of shirts that you're like, okay.
Smart enough. I was very lucky. One of the great things about Arte Syndicate is the ability to talk to people that are in respected fields that know something about something that you don't know. That may be the most valuable part of it.
100%.
And I believe it is Ron Williams, Thread Ink Bear, real famous producer, does all kinds of printing, real good, wholesome dude. Just made a slot. Hey, call me, Zoom me, and just told me, this is what we need to do. You need to get a print on demand, blah, 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 blah. And then when you get time, you can come see me, and so we didn't have to buy no. We just used a print on demand service. That people, I get people want me. The most frustrating part is people wanting me to sign their merchandise, and it doesn't come from me yet, and so they have a hard time comprehending how that works. And I'm like, well, then I explain to them, but if you'll mail it to me, I'll pay the shipping back to you, and I'll sign it.
Yeah,
it's important. It's a big thing.
it is.
And then we got the construction company. I do septics. I mean, I do hard work. I'm a manual labor guy. I dig post holes, put in fences. We dig ditches. We do all the stuff most people want to do. And we just bought a new trailer. We haul rock. I got a CDL. I can't own a handgun, but I haul explosives. And, and so it's it, which makes sense. And then speaking, and then we got some vacation rentals I take care of.
Wow. So speaking, like you go in and speak on stages and with people, that sort of thing?
Not quite so yet. We're hoping for the opportunity to come about. We're doing a lot of podcasts. We're building that, ramping that up. That's really what I want to do. I really, there's that guy I was listening to on the show. He's got a weird name, but he made a lot of money in the recovery business. It was like 2 episodes ago. Eric, I don't know, but so I've never really thought about doing my life in recovery, making it, an income, but I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
So I kind of invest all my money in this stuff. So we're just kind of going. And and all I know is that, if I don't get high today, it's going to be all right. I haven't had a truck in a month. Okay. My truck broke down. I've been borrowing cars and driving a semi bobtail where I go, and so, and I used to think all these things would come against me. I was so fragile, she left me, I just fall to pieces, go back to jail. Now I deal with problems on all kinds of levels. I still went to the gym. I still made 2 workouts a day. I still went to work. I still got my mom to the chemo center. I did all that. Still made it to court, except that one day, but not even having a truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I tell people all the time, like, listen, just because you got sober, don't think that suddenly the world is like a perfect place. Like, you're still going to contend with life, and you're going to be constantly thrown curveballs and situations and adversity you've got to overcome, but you got to sit in there and do it without using, which is where the challenge is. Because in the past, if we were confronted with that kind of shit, we just go use, and it's like, okay, whatever, deal with it, or don't even really care about that anymore. But when you're sober and you have to like actually get in there and go through that shit, it's it makes you a strong person. That's for sure.
It sucks. I was like,
but being locked up sucks more.
I was like, what do you? I thought when day 30, Roman candles were going to shoot out my ass and confetti was going to go everywhere. Day 100, it's like it's gonna be great. And, like all this shit's just going wrong. I'm making every wrong decision you can make on buying trailers, okay, or buying a truck. I mean, it's just been hammering. Yeah, and so I think a lot of people get confronted with that, and it's like, this ain't what you sold me on.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say it was going to be. The Lord knows it ain't going to be perfect.
Yeah. No, and we're just living in times that aren't easy. So, it's not prosperous times for the United States, and so you got to contend with everything that comes with that.
Yes. It's a big misconception, but it's a valid one. I mean, and it takes so long after you damage, you do so much damage, for this period of time in your life when you're using, and then you get around a recovery group and they're all bravo, and they need to be bravo. Everyone needs to be, hey, bravo, man. Everyone needs to be more supportive of the fact that, hey, you get your life together, good for you, but you don't need to have to like make it that big of a deal.
Yeah.
It needs to be a big deal, but not a big deal.
Yep.
Because it becomes, you're going to get humbled. You're going to get, God's going to, whoever, the universe is going to try you.
Yeah.
And if you pick up, it's right back to the same point. That's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you realize that?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you think you'd be starting over. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people is like, oh, I'm going to go out there with the new skills I have and not be like how I used to be. It's like, no, you're exactly where you left off. Nothing changed. You think you're smarter? You're wrong. In fact, your tolerance went down and now you're going to die from an overdose.
and you'll be back past your tolerance. Like if it took you a year to get at this level, Well, it only takes you a week to get back to that level when you relax.
Yeah.
And so it's insane, and it's just it's a bad problem.
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
selfish problem. It is
it
what it
is.
is.
And I actually think that you end up worse because now you sort of know better. You have the skills, you've seen it, and you went back to it again. And I think you will do yourself in 1,000 times harder and faster than the time before. There is a thing called ignorance is bliss where you can, like, stretch the shit out. But once you really know better and had made those decisions and go back to it anyway, that recourse is like 1,000% harder.
I can tell you to the moment the first time I ever experienced paranoia.
Okay.
I mean, I can. I can remember. We've been shooting cocaine, and I come out this house. I come out this apartment, and I instantly had this weird notion that someone was watching for me. And from that moment on, in my entire life, if I did any type of stimulated drugs, I always got paranoid. But before then, the 1,300 times or whatever, never a problem. And so when it happened, once you get, because if you like watch some of my videos, if I'm concentrating, I do this face. I can't do this. I can't do it. No, I don't know. I do like this face because I'm fucked up. I fucked myself up. And it came from being high and cooking. I get concentrated on cooking. Like, man, you make this god awful face. And I was like, what do you mean? So they take pictures of it. And I still do it to this day. Sober. Yeah. And that's one of the things I got to deal with. Yeah. The Rocky Mountain Horror Show.
I don't know. I think with enough time away from it, I think those things will relax and they'll change. They won't be part of who you are.
There's a physical, you can get, it's just a messed up deal. Okay. And it's just it turns out that, a lot of people thought they were having a good time, and maybe some can. There's people that can, have a weekend out or whatever. But I've never seen nobody that could use hard drugs. And like the weekend warrior, I've always 100%. I've seen every weekend warrior turn into a junkie.
Yeah.
Or go to rehab, or and so they get this. I can use on Friday, and now your Friday's going to become your Monday.
Yep. And then it's going to be your Thursdays through your Mondays. And then it's, your Wednesdays through your Tuesdays. Oh shit. Well, that's all week. Like, yeah.
Right. Before
exactly.
You know it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jason, I could talk to you all day, but we've already been in this 90 minutes. So
yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there any well, first of all, we'll tell everybody where to find you. And then I want to know if you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners.
You can find me on, I'm not really big on Instagram, but across YouTube and TikTok, it's Jason with a Felony. My name is Jason Scott Davis on Facebook. We got a page called Fluid English. Boy, I think that everyone finds their life against something in all kinds of angles, and I almost got emotional there. And if I could say anything, you're more powerful than what you think you are. I didn't think I would ever be doing this, and it's been less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And so when you set your mind, you already know about the mental discipline and the things that we think we don't need, that we need the most. If you believe in yourself and you get in that mirror and talk to yourself and give yourself a chance, great things will happen. And I'm your biggest fan.
I love that. Awesome words. Yeah. And you've accomplished a lot. You should be really proud of yourself. Really proud of yourself. Yeah. And it's because you just own it. It doesn't have to be hidden in the dark. Like, you own it and you put it out there. And I think that's the magic of helping others, by us being vulnerable and genuine. And that's the magic.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. I'll let you know when we're airing.